How you doing, guys? I decided that while I was sitting here waiting like 2 minutes for 6 o'clock, I was like, this is my live stream. I don't have to wait till 6 o'clock. There's probably at least a couple of you guys who are, just chilling out, waiting for the glorious information and rapport that we're going to have. So, why is my chat not showing up? What's going on here? No, that's not it. You guys can see the chat? There it is. Why is it weird like that? How do I pop it out? There we go. Popped it out. So, it's much to discuss. Actually, I don't have a whole lot specifically of topics, and it is probably just going to be me today. So, sorry to all you guys who are big fans of Big Dan and Che. They are just, once again, I've just been like last minute. I told them only about an hour and a half ago that I was able to do it tonight. So it's probably on me. What's up, Utah Mike, sir? Thanks for stopping by on this glorious, as you see in the title, Killdozer Day. I even tilted the camera down a little bit so you can, even exposing my fake backdrop, just so you could see the Killdozer shirts. And I will put the link to those just in case, any of you want to partake of some Killdozer shirts. There's the one that you can see beneath my videos. I think it's Teespring. That one you have more options for different types of shirts, I think. And then there's also the ones on roadwasteland.com if you want to, show people your killdozing pride. And for those of you who don't know this story, somehow, if you've been watching my videos and somehow still don't know the story of the Killdozer rampage, they've had Netflix documentaries. You can read about it on all over the internet. So go check it out. It's pretty interesting stories. Which places for a guy to go unresponsive? Cool Hand Inc. I don't understand. Yeah, I know a lot of people actually did. This was just some random cheap thing I bought online. I didn't pay. I just found some random place with photo backdrops, and it actually looks really real on camera. Like most people think that's, even though there's like a little bit of a ripple here, if you don't see the movement, it's very hard to tell. So worked out for it. I don't even remember where I got it. Again, Cool Hand, what are you talking about of people going unresponsive? I'm not sure what you're referring to. Howdy to places you can't go. So if you guys have your own topics, obviously let me know, because I was just going to mention, remind everyone it's Beautiful Killdozer Day, talk about a few things. Mainly that if you guys have seen the story of, there was like a plane that crashed around DC in the Virginia woods or mountains somewhere. I first saw people reporting about it on Twitter, people who live in DC saying they heard a explosion. It was quickly revealed to be a sonic boom from F-16s responding to some private jet that had like made a weird loop like up close to New York, I think, and came back and was unresponsive, like was either close to or crossed into restricted airspace. And they were at least nervous enough that the jets went supersonic to respond to it and creating the sonic boom. And then it apparently crashed. They shot flares at it, even, which they admitted, and then it apparently crashed. They're not even saying it was drills. They're saying it was a real incident. I think they probably shot the damn thing down, because if it's serious enough or you're nervous enough to go supersonic to respond and shoot flares at it, and then it still didn't respond, I'm thinking they kind of... But, maybe it was just one, lone pilot had too much of the, stroked out, and then was just gliding along till it ran out of gas or whatever. But it was a weird flight path, and they haven't told me what the plane was. They just said private, I believe, but still could be like company or something. I know. Carpenter Key says, imagine if he didn't get stuck in the basement foundation. Yeah, one of the government buildings that Marvin Heemeyer was leveling with his killdozers had like a sub basement that he didn't know, or subfloor that he didn't know about. So when he leveled the building, it like kind of broke through and got stuck and couldn't like get out, and then eventually overheated. That was the end of the story. Drills. Oh yes, it's a topic. Definitely. SPQR is talking about drills because we would have been talking about drills specifically and how important it is to do things, even for like time related reasons. Like if you kind of hear a bump in the night type thing, or we could use this plane thing for an example. What if these guys had been like, went over loudspeaker and they said, hey, this is another hijacking type thing. This thing is going to go down, or it's rigged with that part of those 20,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate that went missing and it's coming down somewhere. You got to get the hell out or hunker down or whatever. Just come up with a scenario that could happen and then think about how you would go about dealing with it and see how fast. Most of the issue is fast. Most of us have at least put some thought into what we would do in a lot of these scenarios, but dealing with it in like a quick manner in the amount of time that would actually be helpful, and not having to be like go into your garage and open a few totes to get that random piece of gear, and and kind of make sure those magazines in your vest or your belt are actually reloaded after your range trip and all this other stuff like that. So drills with your weapons, obviously getting ready in time, medical stuff like tourniquets, just being able to do that stuff really quickly. Hey Donna, glad you could make it as well. Someone says like DeWalt Makita Milwaukee drills. Sure, man. Get that little 18-volt going and do some drilling. Some dental work, some impromptu dental work. That's actually, I'm glad I have one of those because you guys have seen me talk about the Zendir power station, which I have solar panels for. I love that thing. Definitely expanded my preparation because it has enough, wattage that it can handle. I mean, the batteries recharge at a steady rate, so they don't really use peak watts in the way that like a plug-in drill would, but I can use the plug-in drills if I want. I can recharge the batteries and now have power tools. I can use pretty much any of my other power tools. But the battery technology has gotten so much better since, in my lifetime, that for most people, there's no reason to get corded appliances anymore. Not appliances, corded power tools anymore if you don't have to do like heavy daily work or hours of work or whatever. It's just so much simpler to move them around as you need to. They're smaller usually. Obviously you don't have to deal with the cords and extension cords. So it's great. Yeah, please do mash that thumbs up. We got 22 people watching now. We got 9 thumbs up. That'd be great if we get it to 20. I'll let 2 of you guys off the hook, but if we can get that to 20, that would be fantastic. And I know you guys saw the video. I've been thinking a lot about gas masks lately because of the actual, I'm just gonna be all over the place tonight. Unless you guys give me some some topics, I'm just gonna do what do they call it when you just like the extreme of consciousness? That's what it is. Let my ADD take over. So I've been very happy with all the products I've gotten from Mira. They have another option on there that I don't have an example to show you. That's probably an even better option for most preppers, which is including the filters would be a little bit more expensive than this, but it's a full face respirator. And a lot of people I've seen on the prepping channels talk about the gas mask, always talk about the full CBRN mask. And it's important to know the difference. But the situations where you would actually matter that you had a CBRN gas mask versus a full face respirator with the same filter are extremely slim, luckily, and they're also very serious. So like you might have the CBRN gas mask, but the difference is in things like blister agents, mustard gases, nerve gas, things like that, where you would also have to, like your skin can't touch it, obviously. It's destroying even other kinds of rubber. So to survive it, you would not only have to have the full CBRN mask, you would also have to have a full chemical suit over gloves, over boots. You couldn't let it touch any of your skin. You'd have to be in MOP 5 or whatever, which is the full suit in the military, because they have stages of it. Like, tear gas, you just use the mask, and then the different stages of adding all the gear. The MOP 5 is all of it, because that stuff is heinous. So it is possible to buy that stuff on the civilian markets. It's all available, stuff that would let you survive, blister agents like that. But it's very unlikely that we would come in contact with that in a civilian environment. Yes, I absolutely do have a link for this one. Let me grab that real quick for you. And because the one I don't have, let me see. Sorry, I don't have it handy, but I'll pull it up on my It's in my last video. So I'll get in just a second. But yeah, hit your comments in there too. But so the main difference then becomes, what other features are you talking about? Like, can you get away? Are the threats that you think you are facing something that would attack your eyes? That's pretty much the big difference that you need to look at when you're deciding. If unless you think you need the blister agent protection, which I'm telling you most of you don't need. Yeah, it would be nice to have it. And, you know, if an extra few $dozen or whatever isn't going to make the difference for you, then you might as well, because that butyl rubber does, I think, hold up a lot longer, just in general, you know, if you're talking like decades or whatever. But did that link go through? There we go. That is that is the respirator. And from there, you will be able to get their full face one as well. So what you should really be asking yourself is, what are the other features you want? So if you decide you don't need the blister agent protection, which, like I said, you probably don't. I probably don't, even though I do have the real gas mask. I will be using it as a respirator. I won't be getting in. I don't even have a setup for full mop gear. So then you're talking about, what are the likelihood that I'm going to need something that is going to affect my eyes? So something like tear gas would affect your eyes. Something like, you know, contagions, it depends. Like something like COVID potentially can get into your eyes, but, you know, goggles would work. So if you're talking about just stuff like that, just like smoke can still get in your eyes, but isn't necessarily going to harm you. And you could wear regular goggles in that sense. So I would say then at that point, it becomes, how important is tactical stuff to you, and how important is glasses, like corrective vision, and how claustrophobic are you? If you're not too worried about having to use a weapon while having the gas mask on, and you're not too worried about feeling claustrophobic, and you don't have corrective lenses, then you might as well go get the full face mask, because for smoke, tear gas, and even more viral and contagion bacterial protection, the full face just makes more sense. If you do think you want to be all tactical out, wear it with a helmet, wear it with your own goggles or your own corrective lenses, then you might want to go with the tactile respirator. Or if it's really big deal to you to have the drinking and communication options that you can get, then either this or the full gas mask are going to have those options. So even if you don't need the blister agent protection, if you want all those options, because the respirator is a full face version of this, it doesn't have any of those other options, but most of the time you're not going to need it. And right now, obviously the big threat would be, I mean, obviously Canadian prepper knows, have talked about smoke. So smoke is a big one. You want your eyes covered. And nuclear fallout, you'd mostly be talking about just breathing protection, but still just I think the best overall version, if you don't know what you're doing and you're not worried about tactical stuff, you don't have to worry about glasses or claustrophobia, get their full face respirator, which is, I think, $130 before the filters. This one is slightly cheaper because it's $200, but it comes with 2 filters. So that would work out to be about the same, maybe. So then it just comes down to which of those options. These are, yeah, all of those that I mentioned are 40 millimeter compatible, which is nice. So this one actually is a full size, you know, NATO old Israeli one. I use it for the examples. The ones that you can get with this and that it comes with are actually slightly smaller. So you can use those with any of those that have the threaded 40 millimeter attachments. You can use it with ones that you already have, other companies make, military issue ones, whatever. So that's the most important thing, is your filter, regardless of which mask or respirator you end up getting. Filters have different kinds. They have ones that are specifically made for viral. They have ones that are NBC, and that's one that I would mostly recommend. They'll cover the most. And like I said, that your biggest threat right now is going to be from, in my opinion, aside from smoke and just like riot level tear gas and stuff, is going to be nuclear fallout. Is going to be the one that we want to make sure we have ready for. And that's just dust, really. What you're preventing is dust. It's nothing specific about the particles themselves. They're just dust from the explosion. They're just radioactive, and you don't want to get them inside, because like I mentioned before, if you can prevent the fallout from getting inside you, you can survive even a very short doses of radiation. Like people greatly over exaggerate the amount of like ongoing problems that even people in like Hiroshima and Nagasaki had. They've done studies that the people who, you know, were dosed high but got away, you're going to get sick, but if you survive it, they don't have like insanely higher rates of cancers or birth defects or anything like that, like some people seem to think. So you definitely want to get inside. If you're not blown up initially, you want to get in shelter, and you want to prevent yourself from breathing in any of that. and not having it just on you for long periods of time. And even normal buildings provide pretty great protection against fallout if they're depending on the size. It's distance and materials are what protect you. But even something like 2.5 to 3 inches, I think it's 2.4 inches of concrete halves the amount of radiation that you would experience from fallout on the other side of it. So if you're in like a major apartment building, you're going to have a lot more than 3 inches of concrete, especially if you're more than one wall inside. So you want to get as far to the inside as possible and not necessarily lower. If you can go in the basement, that's even better. But if you can't get in the basement, going about halfway up is actually super protective too, in the middle, because you're quite a distance from the edges, quite a distance from any of the fallout that would accumulate on the ground, and distance from the roof. But you want to get at least 15, I think it's like 12 is where you really see a drop off, 12 feet from an outer layer. But anything beyond that, I aim for like 15 feet or more from the outer wall. And the more layers of like literally anything that you can put in between you will also diminish that. Because just like concrete, every material has a halving distance. So like concrete, it takes 2.5 inches to have the radiation. Wood takes like 11 inches. Sand takes like 3 inches or something. But anything, so if you can put appliances, there's a little bit of a couple millimeters of metal in there. Like lead, it only takes like a tiny amount. Steel only takes like an inch. So anything you can put in the way will help. Someone said this show is sexy hot. You're welcome, I guess. Yeah, I hope all are safe tonight. Hello. I'm going to go back a little bit on the chat because I was ranting and wasn't looking into it. But for those of you who just showed up, 34 watching now, we need to get to 20 likes. So please, like that'll make a difference. It's Killdozer Day. On this day in 2004, Marvin Heemeyer flattened the city of Granby, Colorado with an armored bulldozer. Friend's house burned down today. Prep's gone. Damn. Shit, the fan comes in many forms. It absolutely does. And that's what I'm always preaching on this is the normal stuff. I have like 7 fire extinguishers in this house. It actually gets kind of weird. And I have these too. These I know I've shown you guys the fire blankets. These are good for carrying with you, like if someone catches on fire, because it's a lot easier and lighter and smaller than carrying a big fire extinguisher. They're great for the kitchen, because if you have a grease fire that starts on your stove or it's still in the pan, you want to have a fire extinguisher there, but you don't just want to automatically just and douse your whole kitchen with chemicals that you have to clean up later. So if it isn't serious yet, if it's still in the pan, if you don't have a lid or something, you can pull out it's a fiberglass sheet and you just throw it on there and it smothers it. So fire protection is huge. Way more people it's stuff like that, like fires, burglaries, just normal everyday stuff that we know is going to continue to happen, regardless of what happens with the economy, regardless of what happens with the World War III or anything. This stuff is going to be happening, and it happens all the time. It happens every day. And we've probably all known someone or know of someone who's had, been affected by this. So that's the stuff that, car accidents and stuff like that. Your preps will make a difference in that, in lowering your risk of these things. So sorry to your friend. Hopefully they got out safe and had insurance. Everyone from Madison Township. All right. Full face pig mask doesn't work well with night vision. Yeah. I mean, that's why they do have the one version of their tactical CBRN mask, which has eye holes instead of the full face shield. You do sacrifice a little bit of field of view, but it does allow you to use more tactical gear. But like I said, if you're not worried about blister agents and you don't need a CBRN mask for tactical stuff like that, go with this respirator, which I think I still have the link here. And because this one is compatible with a bunch of helmets, you can use your own goggles or no goggles. You have if you're not using goggles, you can completely open. And you can even choose if you want to have this come with the port on either side, if you really want to keep it out of the way. There's a drop-down menu on the website when you're ordering it. Right. And it always comes standard with it in the middle just for balance. But especially if you get their smaller versions of the filters, I think having it in the middle is fine for most people, but it'll be definitely out of the way. If you're like a right-handed shooter and you get it on the left side, then it's definitely out of the way and you'd be able to use your nods or any of that stuff. And Carpenter Keys' half-life drops drastically after 48 hours. If you survive the initial drop, you usually live. Yeah, what you need to do is try within like 12 to 15 minutes, if you're within the area where the fallout will come, because if you see an explosion, you're not instantly irradiated. If you're not wiped out by the explosion, then you have a few minutes until the fallout starts coming down. So give yourself like a 15-minute clock to get in as sheltered as much as you can take your potassium iodide really quick, although, that takes a little bit to kick in. Hopefully you'd have some notice of, and could start taking it ahead of time, but take it anyway, put your mask on or your respirator on, any sort of filtration that you have. And even if you can't, just get inside, tape up the windows and stuff so the particles can come in, and get into the middlemost part of the whatever building you're in. And if you have like a serious basement, get in that, or even a regular basement. That's usually going to be the best for most houses. So yeah, and then stay there for 72 hours. 48 hours, the first 48 hours is the most critical, but after 72, it's extremely low. So if I had a shelter, I would probably stay in it for like a week. There'd be no reason for me to venture out before that. And at that point, it's going to be extremely reduced to the point where it shouldn't even be dangerous to go outside at all. You'd still probably want to have a respirator filtration if you're in an area where a bunch of dust would get kicked up, from the explosion or whatever. But the half-life of it would already drop. So the radiation levels would have dropped because of the half-life. That try to lift 1-inch thick steel plates. What are you talking about? I got some 1-inch thick steel plates in the garage that I put on a barbell. Not drooling. They're not very big, but they're 1 inch thick. I mean, it's iron, I guess, not steel, to be technical. But yeah, that's a lot of, if you're inside a Killdozer, it might have some pretty good protection against fallout. He had like 1 inch of steel, 10 inches of concrete, another inch of steel. So he would have actually been, assuming he had any sort of filtration or a respirator, like the Mira tactical respirator. Link will be in the description. I'm going to make shirts that just say link in the description, probably. And if wife is in the shelter also, I'm out of there. Yes. As the Bible said, it is better to live on the corner of the roof in the nuclear fallout than to share a house with a contentious woman. Or something along that. That's a paraphrase. But yeah, one inch thick steel probably isn't the best option, but it just gives you an idea of like, that's to cut it in half. So anything reduces it. So if you push your, any sort of stuff you have that has metal in it, that has wood in it, that has plastic in it, like all of that has some reduction capacity. And distance is obviously the easiest thing usually, is to get the farthest away from it. And then anything else you have in between there is. Carpenter Key says, after 72 hours, what's left of the radiation is permanent, but far less deadly than the initial drop. Yeah, I mean, it will be there for however long time, but it's just that the levels are so low already that the continued drops are almost irrelevant and don't really matter. And because we all get radiation, throughout our lives. I got the sun, all sorts of stuff. You might get an X-ray here and there. There's a level of radiation that your body usually can recover from and heal. And it's not, even if it's a pretty high dose, but when you breathe it in or ingest it, that radioactive particle is just in there, like for that entire time, is continuing to irradiate the cells next to it, and that's what becomes damaging. Iron doesn't have carbon, so mild steel, carbon. Yeah, whatever. I'm not a metallurgist. I know that pure iron is usually a little more brittle, so they're using some sort of alloy, like you said, so mild steel or whatever. But and I'm not sure what alloy in these charts that I'm looking at, where it says steel, has a 1 inch of steel is what has that having effect. I don't know what alloy they're talking about. Probably a pretty standard, not like what's the word? I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a metallurgist. And there's another interesting article here moving along. Let's talk about World War III, unless you guys want something else to go on. Since I'm just by myself today. Like I said, this was my fault again. They just couldn't make it. I let them know less than 2 or 3 hours ago that I said, hey, I'm going to be doing it tonight. Let me know if you can make it. And they couldn't make it. So is what it is. What's up, Shrek PMC? You made it this time. And as for whoever was asking, I've gotten a few comments about the chat replays in the live stream. I had set it to chat replay. It still doesn't work sometimes. So I did some research. I think what's happening, I saw a video from another channel talking about this, is that I think I have to also say allow comments, potentially like offensive or whatever. You just allow all comments. Because if you set it to block any of them, I think it will just block the live chat because it doesn't know or it can't tell or whatever. So I have already had it set on there, but I had to do a little. I'm definitely a troglodyte as usual. So it took me weeks or months or whatever to figure out that simple thing. So if you're watching this and it's not live, if you're replaying it later, let me know if the chat's showing up, because I think I got that dialed in. So here's an article from, I don't know what's considered alt-right or extremely right-wing these days, but I don't think the Market Insider is, some super right-wing source or whatever. But they're reporting that Russia is spending surprisingly little on its war in Ukraine. So I don't know if these are 100% true, but it says Russia's invasion of Ukraine has come at a steep geopolitical price, and tens of thousands of people have died. But a new analysis by The Economist, which is definitely not a right-wing source, suggests the country is actually spending a small amount on the war effort. And I know that part of this is they've managed to do it by paying private military contractors and using old equipment and material, which some people saw that as a sign that they were, even at the beginning were like, didn't have any good gear or running out of gear. And it doesn't look like that's the case, obviously, because they were saying that from early on, and they're still going and slowly continuing to take over Ukraine. They took Bakhmut, which was supposed to be super, super important and like would do anything to stop that from happening. And now they're kind of moving the goalposts and saying like, yeah, it doesn't matter. That was just symbolic. But anyways, so they've been doing that. We are using private military contractors. It says the direct fiscal cost of the war, spending on soldiers and machines, is estimated to be about 3% of Russia's GDP, or roughly 67 billion a year. And we've sent like what, 200 billion to Ukraine so far. I don't even know what the number's out when you count like the amount that we have like pledged for their retirement plans or whatever other nonsense. Now it's probably true that a lot of that hasn't made it to the front lines because of the corruption, but we've spent a lot more. Ukraine and NATO have spent a lot more than Russia has up to this point, it certainly seems like. So regardless of what you think about the overall outcome of who's going to win, Russia definitely seems to be winning the war of logistical and financial attrition so far, especially because the sanctions have almost like completely backfired and strengthened their currency. Says that figure comes from a comparison of Moscow's pre-invasion spending forecast for defense and security with what it actually spent. It says by historical standards, of course, the war pales in comparison. The Soviet Union in World War II spent about 61% of GDP. At the time, the US was spending 50% of GDP towards the conflict. So that's like a true wartime economy. 50% of GDP during World War II and 60%. So imagine with how they're able to soak up everything NATO and Ukraine and US and everyone has thrown at them with 3% spending. If they go to a full wartime economy, a full mobilization with 30%, 50%, then imagine what they could throw into the conflict. Not good. So hopefully that is not the direction we're going. Good evening, South Florida DCL. Good to see you here. The main character in my fiction serial channel is Braun Smith's super genius. Oh, nice. So you got to have a little bit of that knowledge. Yeah, everyone, you have a Trek PMC's channel has some fiction on there, which is based on Braun Smith super genius. Could be interesting. But there was actually I think was it on Twitter or something that we were talking about this? It was either you or someone else that I remembered a sci-fi book of some kind that my brother was talking about, where there was either this they had created this, I think, and it got out of the lab, sound familiar, of a bacteria that like destroyed all plastic and petroleum products, just ate it up. So oil went away, plastic went away for the most part, other than like real rubber, like tree rubber, like we had back in the day. So then even though we had all the current technology, the world was plunged pretty much back into like Civil War era tech, like steam engines, everything wood and metal, but like a more technologically advanced, but we still had to use. So it was like a very steampunk kind of battle, sci-fi kind of scenario there. Hey, we're at 30 likes. I appreciate it, guys. We got over so shoot me some topics, you guys. We've talked about Killdozer Day, talked about weird planes crashing or being shot down in DC. We talked about Russian GDP and military spending only being 3% of GDP. So they could crank that up in a big way, which is not a good sign for anyone who wants them to lose. Let's put it that way. It's interesting. I mean, yeah, and was that the name of it? I don't think it was Andromeda strain. That was just a virus, wasn't it? I had discovered it. Andromeda strain was the Michael Crichton one, but I'm pretty sure that was just someone on. If you want to go on my Twitter, I was talking about this with someone, and someone knew the answer because GPT lied to me about it, just made it up. But I didn't think that was Andromeda strain. Do you like XRP? Are you referring to Ripple, the cryptocurrency? I have dabbled in it. I don't have any particularly in-depth knowledge about it. I know they're fighting or have been in a long drawn-out process fighting with the SEC, Security and Exchange Commission, about whether it should be classified as a security or not and everything. But in general, I've said this before on the channel, I do think that when we finally see the US currency start to collapse, and I'm not talking about the long, slow decline of value, but when we really see people ditching the currency and realizing that it has died and looking for other venues, and when our 10% inflation goes to 100% or more, even 50, 75, whatever, when people say, I can't keep my money in dollars, crypto is going to go up huge. And I think that will apply to all of them. That doesn't mean I think any particular crypto is strong or a good idea or not a scam. But the big ones especially, I think, are going to be fairly safe for a while. Bitcoin, Ethereum. And if you have any particular knowledge about ones like Ripple or Dash that I know Gregory Manarino likes, and some other stuff, then because I always talk about gold and silver. I love my pirate silver. This is from MK Bars. Definitely check his out. If you got a few extra bucks to spend and want some silver that even if you don't end up making money on it, looks pretty badass. Get some hand poured silver from MK Bars. These are limited edition. But anyways, so there's a lot of people my age and especially younger, even up into Gen X age, that have never purchased physical metals. There's still a very small percentage of the population has physical precious metals. So when the time comes and bam, people are like, shit, I'm getting paid. I can't keep this in dollars because of the inflation rate or whatever's going on. I need to put it in something else. They're going to go to stocks. They're going to go to crypto. I think there's a lot more people in my age cohort and especially younger that have bought and sold crypto before and so are a little bit more comfortable with that than they would be going through CoinShop and knowing what is this, a collectible one? Is this a scam? What am I getting? Am I going to buy it online? They can just log on the computer to accounts that they probably already have in Coinbase and then whatever else and just put their money into that really quick while they try to figure out what's going on. So I do think there will be a time. I can't speak for, way down the road, or I can't speak for what's going to happen when the CBDC comes out. There's two ways that could go. That could either legitimize other cryptocurrencies, which is what I think is going to happen. They'll probably be really strict about the ways that you can use them so that it doesn't compete. But I think it'll bolster the crypto just market. But it also could go the other way, that they try to crush any competition. But who knows? Are any of them not a scam? Yeah, plenty are not a scam. That doesn't mean that you won't lose money on it. I mean, if you're talking about scams like rug pools and the one that people literally create just to do a pump and dump, there's plenty of those. But if you stay away from the big ones, just go to by market cap. If you go to the top 5 or whatever, now it's not 100% true because there are some that have crashed that were pretty far up there. But like I say, what I tell people, and this is not financial advice, but if you have any, if you want to get involved in crypto and if you're nervous about it, you don't have a lot of knowledge in it, then just stick with Bitcoin and maybe Ethereum, because those are the ones that are least likely to have major problems, like just instantly go to zero, like some of these other ones. They have the biggest market cap, so it takes a lot more money moving in or out to have it go wild. So yeah, you're not going to have one go from a penny, for your $8,000 investment become 4 billion like that one dude did with Shiba Inu or whatever in 2 years. But it's also a lot less likely that it'll go from 50,000 to or 1,000 to a penny overnight too. So if you just want to get a little piece and you don't have a pretty solid in-depth knowledge on it, you're not willing to track all the new news, and to stick with a couple big ones, and don't put a whole lot of your net worth into it, because I think that all of these things you're safer off if you have smaller amounts spread out. I absolutely have junk silver. I haven't bought it in a while because the prices on it have gotten insane compared to just silver in general. It's still, silver prices or whatever, but the premium has gone way up because for those of you who don't know, junk silver is just the term for the old US currency and sometimes other national currencies, but the 90% and sometimes 40% silver coins. Now that they don't make that anymore. So unlike this hoard stuff, or even unlike the silver eagles, like there is just an amount of that out there that they're not making anymore. And it was called junk because it used to be something that people didn't want. But then the idea being that a lot of people know that that is one of the hardest to counterfeit just because of the size. Like if you're taking a dime size piece of silver, it's really not worth that much individually, and it would cost a fortune to counterfeit that. So the smaller the item, the less likely it is to be counterfeited because it's just not worth it. In the same way you wouldn't make a counterfeit $1 bill, you would make a counterfeit 100 or maybe 20 or something. So they're hard to counterfeit. They are recognized. It doesn't take, like if I go to someone with this thing, they've never seen this before. They're like, is this even real silver? Is it actually pure silver? Like it says, they might want to do a test. So in like a crazy environment, if it's someone that's not a coin shop, if they're not a mint or one of the places that actually melted down, like a refinery, it might be hard to sell that. Whereas silver coin, anyone who finds out that pre-60 or like 1965 or earlier coins are 90% silver are going to be able to be like, yeah, that looks like a dime or quarter. You probably didn't make a fake dime or quarter. So I'm going to accept that. And that's the idea. So it's become very sought after for people in the prepping and stacking community. So they soaked it all up. So I have a decent amount of, I have a few, I want to say a few $dozen in face value. So maybe $50, $60, I think, in face value of, maybe more, something around there. I would guess 50. I don't know. I have a few rolls of coins, dimes, quarters of 90% silver, but not a lot. And I haven't bought any recently because now it's way over the price that I'd be willing to pay. I get generic bars a lot, and if you get them from the big mints, and I love the any of the actual like silver eagles and stuff too. I want to get some silver Krugerrands because I love Krugerrands. I have a couple gold ones, but I don't have any silver ones. So let's see what else we got. Oh, so SPQ Arsene Systematis says that in an Andromeda strain, it does eat plastic stuff. Okay, cool. Another great book, one of my favorite prepping books, is Lucifer's Hammer. I'm going to reread that. I realized I didn't have it, so I went and bought it not too long ago. I'm going to reread that again. Very good, kind of shit hit the fan novel. Carpenter Key says coffee, food, liquor, and bullets. Got my coffee right here, and obviously food is the big one. And that's one of the things to keep coming back to. If you see all this stuff, I'm talking about gas masks, like, oh, what am I going to do? Focus on the basics. Realize like the best drill, we talked about drills earlier, one of the best drills you can do is like take a weekend or something, and you don't even have to actively do it if you really don't want to spend a little bit extra money, which you probably won't have to, but if you just don't want to go through the effort for being lazy or whatever, you don't have to actually turn off all your power and do all that stuff to experience like a shit the fan scenario. But just everything you do throughout the day, stop and think how you would do it in a disaster scenario. So if you get up, waking out of bed, maybe think, oh, how did I wake up? Did my alarm go off? My phone go off? Okay, maybe I need a wind-up alarm clock or something. Or maybe I need a rechargeable one that I can recharge with my Zendure power generator. It could be in the description. And then you go into the bathroom, turn the light on, say, oh, that's house power. So even if I do have a power, do I have little LED lights that I can put in here and turn on and off when I need them? Maybe even those little solar lights that you put in the yard and recharge, something like that. And then you say, go to grab my toothbrush. Say, okay, do I have extra of these? A toothbrush can last for a long time. You don't, no big deal to use it for 6 months or whatever if you have to, but you don't want to use it for like years. So a couple extra of those. Toothpaste, get some extra of that, however you're in your head, what you want to prepare for 30, 60, 90 days, 1 year, 2 year, whatever, figure out how many you would need. Get into the shower, whatever you do. And then just as you go through your day-to-day routine, make a conscious effort of like, how would I do this? Water is coming from municipal. How am I going to do that if the water shuts off? Okay, let me get one of those camp bags, a bucket that I can use a bulkhead fitting on and just put a shower head on that and put a place to hang it in my shower or whatever. It's going down the drain. Will I be able to use that drain? All that stuff. So just start thinking about that as you go throughout the day. And, don't be overwhelmed with it because some of the major ones, like I said, the drain not working, you don't necessarily have to try to figure out a solution for all of that, but gets you thinking about it. And that's the easiest drill you can do, honestly, for general preparedness. And you can pop a medicine, say, ooh, do I have enough of that? If you don't, go to Jace Medical, you get antibiotics, and now they've even opened up into other medications, which is huge. I don't have a list for you of what medications they can give you, but they have now expanded to where they can give you up to a year's prescription of meds that you're currently taking, and which is usually impossible to get from your normal doctor. Like, if you have blood pressure medication, or if you're on like metformin for, type 2 diabetes or whatever you're taking, arthritis meds, whatever, they might be able to do it. I'm late to show the feet pics. That's great. So there was I posted in the, I don't forget what they call it. It's like a community tab on YouTube where you can post comments, and it's almost like a Facebook wall feed more so than in his videos. And I found this hilariously awesome light. It's like a lamp, like a night light, but it's this big like plastic mushroom cloud that just lights up. And I was like, I really want to get this. Somebody buy this for me, because it's cool, but it's like $70, and I don't want to trying to buy more of this stuff and everything. And someone was like, what is this, OnlyFans? So I'm like, why? You want to pay to see me step on a banana or something? Let's talk. So that's what he's talking about, the feet pics. Just refilled my meds. Smart. Good. Obviously good to be on no meds, but the point being that if you're on them, best idea is not to suddenly stop cold turkey in a disaster scenario. Obviously, if it's something that you think you could get off of by being more healthy or whatever, then I would work towards that. But for some people, it's not. Maybe you had a heart transplant and you need anti-rejection meds or something. Who knows? I'm not going to bother trying to say that everyone should just stop taking their meds. But obviously, that's the easiest way, or not easiest, but that's the most complete way to make sure you don't need them in a disaster scenario, is to try to find a way to not need them at all. But that's not always going to be an option. Craigie says, I find it interesting the thought patterns that go through people's heads every day. Like for me, I'm a health freak, and every time I see something like store-bought, I immediately check the ingredients. I've gotten to that point too, not because I'm necessarily a health freak, but for me, it's more about like, I've had a hard time like articulating this, but like some people are motivated by either like they have a mission. Other people are motivated by like their art or whatever they just love doing, their passion. I'm motivated by having an enemy. Usually I need like a foil to get me to do things. And so for me, that one of the motivations that I've got basically for health is just becoming pissed off at the like these big ag companies and whatever you want to call it, that are just forcing all this crap into our food. And so it's become like almost like a mission, to where I'm like, I'm not gonna, you're insulting me by putting this garbage in. So things like seed oils that are obviously bad for you, in my opinion, but are usually not going to be disastrously noticeable in small quantities of certain things. It might be like walking through a smoky room or whatever, where it's not good for you, but it's probably not going to move the radar or be measurably bad. But I still try to avoid like just all of it, because it just makes me mad. I'm like, no, fuck you, I'm not eating it. So like these pickles that I get exclusively because they don't put like the yellow dye in it or whatever. Like the organic ones, like that's the only difference. Like all the other pickles have nothing bad in them usually, except for like they'll put like the dye in it or something. And I'm like, fuck you. I am not drinking this. It's a pickle. You don't need to put colors in it. Like, fuck you, I'm not eating it. So I pay like 2 times as much as I need to for pickles. Probably should just make my own. It's a little tough out here. But yeah. So I have become a kind of freakish about it in that sense. But in general, I'm not a health freak. So, and I was eating that, I would go through like extensive efforts to avoid seed oils in some tiny amount and some random thing. Like they'll tell you like, oh, we greased the pan with seed oils to make this. And I'm like, fuck you. And then I'll go eat Chick-fil-A the next week. So, but now I may have to stop doing that because they went all turbo gay on us. And after years of being, oh, awesome, man. Thank you. Killdozer shirt ordered. It is Killdozer day. And you see me wearing these all the time. This is like, I think it's under the like olive drab, they call it, or it's a green. I think it's called olive, but it might be called military green or something. If you want more options, they are in the drop-down menus. They're like the first pictures that it shows on rulethewasteland.com is just like all the same color, but they have different colors. And the Teespring one that I posted, which you can see under most of my videos on YouTube, I think they even have more options. Maybe like the tri-blend versus the all cotton, some weird shit like that. So either, whatever you want. But what was I talking about, man? I'm so ADD. Oh, the seed oils. Yeah. Oh no. And then Chick-fil-A. I got there. The train has re-railed. What is it called? Regaining your train of thought. So yeah, now after years of being boycotted by, LGBTQIA, kid fucker plus whatever, then this is going to get demonetized, because they donated to supposedly anti-gay causes. They went through all that just to now, when more and more people are realizing what a shit show it is, to being like, we support diversity and inclusion and making this big deal about it. So I'm like, really, man, you can make me give up the Jesus chicken because you guys just can't help it. It's got to be fake and gay like everybody else. I like seed oils and homemade brownies. Go for avocado oil. It doesn't really have a strong, or olive oil can be used in most of that stuff. It has a lower smoke point. So in terms of like cooking, like in a pan and stuff, you might get more smoke and it might become more oxidized at lower temperatures. But the avocado oil can handle, but if you're doing like baking, it'll probably be fine. But avocado oil can pretty much replace canola or soybean oil in any capacity. It's a little bit more expensive, but normally you're not talking about using a huge amount. So the marginal difference in cost is what is defeating Monsanto worth to you? Alphabet month of rage. Someone vote on how long. Let's take a contest. I'll announce someone who on how long this video makes it before being demonetized. Do you think it'll make it to 30 days? I don't think so. The algorithm probably already demonetized it. And the interesting thing is I go and demonetize, or I monetize them right after I'm done live. I don't know how it works if you can do that ahead of time. You probably can, but like I said, I'm a troglodyte. I need help. That's one of the things that I absolutely would do if I was rich, is have like my personal assistant would have to be really tech savvy and make me figure this out. Yeah, Matt Bracken, I've written one of his books. Doesn't he do? He seems like a cool dude. He did like Enemies Foreign and Domestic. It has like the Gadsden flag on it. Cool novel. I read that a while back, and I bought the next two, and I like totally forgot I had them. I think in one of the movies, I need to read the other two. Really cool. It was about like pretty much modern times where the government in the US becomes very tyrannical and freedom-loving people become basically domestic terrorists. At least that's what they're called. Grass-fed butter ghee is great. It is more expensive than getting a lot of the oil, the amount that you would use usually. But I use butter a lot for pan cooking. It's the easiest, and it's the one that adds the best flavor to that sort of stuff. I think Bracken isn't he the one who does a lot of live streams, or used to, with Fernando from the Modern Survivalist, author of Surviving the Economic Collapse? Go on his channel. I think he used to do a lot of live streams with Bracken, and he might still. I might go over there and see. Yeah, let me do this. Look, I got the internet, right? We got the internet. We got the knowledge of the human race at our fingertips. I can check Fernando's channel. He's a cool dude, by the way. Has actually been through what we're going to experience, probably very similar in the US, in Argentina. So read his book, heed his advice. Modern Survivalist. Let's check his live videos. He has a bunch of them going back. Economist Pablo Ortiz. Maybe not. Or maybe it's under videos. Let me just check it. The search hasn't been working. Yep. Yeah. Okay, so they're a few years ago. But he did some. Yeah, I'll give him a call. Maybe we can get him on. I got to finish reading his books first. Can't tell him that I've had his books for years and haven't read the other two. And he probably has more now. But if you like prepping fiction, I do like that one. So Matt Bracken's, I think it was his first book, Enemies Foreign and Domestic. I like it's called, what the hell is it called? It's not called Preppers. It's like one word. The guy who's in, oh man, my brain is shut off. The track went off the tracks again. What's up, Spasmit? Bracken hasn't been on in a long time. Yeah, it was a few years ago. I just remembered that. Why can't I think of the guy who has like survivalist.com and wrote the book? What the hell is that book called? I've read it like 8 times. Oh, my brain. I think some of those spike proteins jumped off this zombie population turning my brain into a sponge. Is it survivalist.com? Survivalliving.com? What the hell is his name? Someone, you tell me. You guys know. I know you know. And he wrote the book. It's not called Preppers. It's not Patriots. Is it just called Patriots? Now I'm gonna look on Amazon. You guys get to see a brain meltdown in real time. Amazon book Patriots. James Wesley Rawls, is that it? It came back. Yes, right before it opened. Yeah, Patriots. Okay. That was a lot of work for. Yep. Yeah. Bamsey got it. James Wesley Rawls. The book is called Patriots. He needs an editor in that book. There are a couple, not too badly, but there are a couple sections that I just skip over because it's not, it messes up the flow. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's some of these weird things that he definitely needs a little bit of an editor in it. Shorten some segments or something like that. It should be in like an appendix. He wanted to get all this. Yeah, he wrote it. And he has a sequel to that one too that I have and haven't read yet. But that one is, I'm not even going to, it's good. I don't think it's great in terms of like, just if I was evaluating it as like not a prepper and just a writer, as just a fictional novel, I wouldn't say it's great in terms of, like I said, it needs an editor and there's certain other elements to it that I don't think are great, but it is good. But there's something about it that just really hits that sweet spot in terms of what I like out of. So it's definitely great if you're like me and like those elements of, because there's a certain part in like disaster fiction, shit hit the fan movies. They always focus on the world after shit hit the fan, after the collapse. I like when shit's going down, like the transition. That's my favorite part. And it hits that really well. And there's like multiple kind of sections of that throughout the book of them like dealing with this collapsing world. So that's what I really like. And also by Thermite at rulewasteland.com. No, 100 Deadly Skills is a nonfiction one. And that was at like, I forget that guy's name. I never really knew his name, but that might not be a bad book. I have that one. It was given to me. I've thumbed through it, but Tom Brown, did he write? Yeah. Hey, Praxis, what's up, man? Tom Brown. He's the is that the same Tom Brown that makes like the tracking knives and stuff? Does he write fiction? No, I finally discovered. I don't know when he dropped in, but I finally discovered it was James Wesley Rawls was the one I can't think of. But yeah, I like Lucifer's Hammer is a great one. Like I said, Patriots by James Wesley Rawls, and I did like that first Matt Bracken book as just in terms of the novel, but I haven't read the other two, which I need to. I may have a copy in the basement. Hey, you got a basement, man. I've discovered that there are no base. I always accidentally live in places with no basements. I lived in Florida and they don't have basements because you can't without quite a bit of construction work because of the water table. You have to basically make a waterproof bucket that's also not going to get buoyed up and crack your foundation. So you can't do basements in Florida, really, realistically. And they don't do them out here almost ever either, because there's so much like rock and everything that it just costs so much to like dig in enough that it's usually cheaper to just make the house bigger. Like if you want bigger space, the land out here isn't particularly expensive, especially up until recently, it wasn't expensive at all. So you could just go out a little bit further into the desert or whatever and get a huge, make your house bigger or make the house taller. Why dig down? You don't need to. There's no real reason other than surviving the fallout. And Praxis was doing some great videos on his building, fallout shelter and everything. So go check that out. Definitely jelly, as the kids say. Would definitely love to have a fallout shelter. But like I mentioned, luckily, you don't get blown away. Buildings in themselves are fairly decent protection. And you can do simple things to make that even better. But I would definitely love to have a little bit of a shelter. 1 Second After, yeah, that one's good. 1 Second After by William Forsten. And I think there was another one that I was solid called Lights Out. What was that book? I don't remember who wrote that. It was another EMP fiction. Thomas, no, that's not the one. David Crawford. That's got to be it right there. So that was a fun one too, for the most part. But 1 Second After is definitely great. That's the one I remember most of those two, I think. So yeah, Patriots, 1 Second After, Lights Out, Lucifer's Hammer. There's one called, if you're into like hard sci-fi, that also deals with disaster, like Quantum Storms. Is about like it's not really a solar, it's like a solar flare, but it gets so bad that it's gonna like kill everything, just totally irradiate the earth. So the survivors have to either go underwater or go into like mine shafts and stuff. So you get a little bit of like space stuff, and you get, because there's like a moon base or a Mars base or something. So Quantum Storms. Let me see if I can find that one. Is that no longer on Amazon? Oh yeah, there it is. I'll put the link on that one too in the description and in the chat, because that one's probably one that you guys won't hear of otherwise. It's not nearly as famous. So that's Quantum Storms. What do we got here from Ahmed? The Road, yeah, that's obviously a major one from Cormac McCarthy. I have not read that book, but the movie is bleak, man. It's bleak, but it is a good survival movie. But it does occur exclusively like after the apocalypse. So Ahmed says they used to, but Fernando is pro NATO, so Matt and him don't do streams. Oh, okay. They're still friends, but they don't agree at all on things. Yeah, I don't. From the stuff I've seen, I obviously, you can see that I'm of the other mind too, and it's not about who I'm pro per se, just what I think is happening, and that doesn't bother me. If people that I like and everything like are of the, because I've you've seen guys like JJ and I don't 100% agree on the stuff that we think is going on right now to either, and that's fine. So no big deal. But if that's, I can get if they wouldn't want to just go in there and argue all the time. B Hill, appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. The world seems like it's on the brink of World War III. I think it is. Keep advocating for prepping. Oh, Brian Hickenbottom, man. You had a new long time no, I haven't heard from you, but thank you very much. And I do think it's on the brink. I think we're actually looking back, where we are right now will be within the dates that they say, like World War III, assuming we go on this current trend. Obviously, could be really hoping that tensions die down for whatever reason. But yeah, I prefer a movie over a book. It depends. I like both, man. There's a lot you can get out of movies you can't get out of books, and vice versa. Get around Pod, Fallout Shelter, and just roll with it. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff you can do. The Last Babylon. I have heard of that one. I have not read it. Need to check that one out. But yeah, thanks again, Brian. Hope you're doing well. And I'm going to keep advocating for prepping. That's what I do. That's pretty much all I do. Advocate for prepping and fantastic hairstyling and killdozing. For those of you who just dropped in, it's Killdozer Day, June 4th. Black Autumn is the book the new upcoming TV series that Homestead is based on. Cool. There was speaking of black, I think it was called Black Summer. Now, zombies in particular, I don't really care about, but that's a fine reason for the apocalypse. I don't care. And they're pretty good in the zombie movies and shows about like showing the descent into it, and not necessarily life after. So I really like that. And the show Black Summer was like so close to being the perfect format for what I'm talking about hitting that sweet spot of like showing stuff in the initial stages, because they would like jump around to these little vignettes of like different characters that were having to deal with this in the very beginning of the zombie apocalypse, like first days, first weeks, maybe first hours in many cases too. But the characters were like so bad and so irredeemably like stupid and terrible in their decision making that it was like too frustrating for me to watch, even though the format was like so damn near close to perfect. They kept dealing with everything in like the worst, most idiotic, lamest ways possible, that I was just like, oh my God, I kept like freaking out. It was too painful. I couldn't finish it. I couldn't keep watching it. It just made me too mad. What is our Franz Ferdinand moment, Zelensky? It could be anything. It's hard to tell. It could be, looking back, it could be them moving into Ukraine. That could just be the moment. It's hard to imagine a Franz Ferdinand moment happening after tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people have died in fighting. But, there is going to be something that would probably be analogous that makes it explode out of exclusively fighting happening in Russia and Ukraine. Because as of right now, barring, maybe weird stuff that isn't 100% confirmed, like the pipeline, there is, all the fighting is in this one theater right now. It's in specifically in 2 countries. So yeah, little things maybe have happened elsewhere, SOF weirdness, but Chinese balloons, whatever. But as of right now, it's still just right there. So it is still just basically a war between 2 countries on paper. So I think what you're talking about will be whatever makes it expand past that. So man, it could be anything. I am Ukrainian. I stand for Ukraine. I would expect you to. Obviously, of course, you're going to stand for Ukraine. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. Any of the, I'm in favor of the war ending, and it's disgusting to me when I see people on either side just wishing for the other side to die, like this whole like Lindsey Graham thing with like, oh, the dead Russians, best money we ever spent. Ha ha ha. Like that's not funny to me. On either side, all these people are just citizens. In either case, even in Russia. If you think Russia's the bad guys, if for some reason you think Ukrainians are the bad guys and deserve it or whatever, like these are the governments. These are a fraction of percent of people. And sometimes governments in other countries that instigate this, like with NATO, that are responsible for these decision makings, for the violence. They're not the ones dying. The people dying are just the average citizens. And you think like that some average Russian guy deserves to die for this, or some average Ukrainian guy? No, that's bullshit. So I stand for peace, and I hope that people stop dying in general. Ukrainians definitely. I definitely don't want any of them to die as well, and I would expect any Ukrainians to stand for Ukraine and their country, just like I expect Americans to stand for America. And don't see anything wrong with Russians standing for Russia. I am waiting for Deus Ex Machina moment. It all feels like that, doesn't it? Just like stuff just happens. I'm like, oh, that's what they need to do this. Hello, everyone. Hey, guys. I went a lot longer than I thought. I was planning on I'm pretty good at ranting by myself, it turns out. I was planning on only doing like half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, but appreciate every guy showing up. We got a decent number of people watching. We got 49 people watching and almost 49 likes. I really appreciate that. We're already at 43. And those of you who just dropped in, it's Killdozer Day. If you want to pick up one of those shirts, you can see the links below the video. Go to ruledwasteland.com. And don't worry about nuclear fallout. There's some cool gas mask options. I want to make a video of like the different options, because like just like I went through earlier in this video, I think I could make a pretty good flow chart for deciding which ones to get. And you don't have to get Mira. Those are the ones that I have experience with, and I think they're great. And you can get whatever you think is, but the decision-making process for what type of mask or respirator you will get will still apply. So I think in most cases, people don't need a full CBRN gas mask, because the major difference with those is the blister agent chemicals, chemical warfare that you would have to have full mop gear for anyway. Oh, thanks, Donna. And hopefully we'll get Shay back on here, and they just couldn't make it tonight, and Dan as well. Cool. Trump had the best answer. I don't want any side to win. I just want peace also. Yeah. And it depends on, like, winning is never defined by anyone. That's the main problem that people say. Like, when you say you want someone to win, like, what does that mean? You have to define victory in any case. Thanks, Brian. I will keep being awesome. I will try. Like, and not just in war, but in anything you're doing, you have to define what is, because if not, you're just going to go off in weird directions. You might focus on a metric that's not important, trying to maximize that. And so I've never seen people define what winning means in this conflict for either side. You know what I mean? Because some people think that Russia is hell-bent on taking over all of Europe, and they're going to keep going. I think that's nonsense, and I haven't seen any indication of that. But it's possible, But again, like, what is winning for either side? And that especially applies when you're talking about, like, people saying we would win against a full-on open conflict with Russia. Like, yeah, we might win in terms of we might be the last man standing, but what does that even look like? Are all, NATO countries just engulfed in radiation and fire? Mystery plane, what's up, JJ? Yeah, so I don't know if it's made it into the broader news yet, but on Twitter I saw there were reports coming out from people living in DC first that I saw that there was some kind of explosion. It was quickly announced from the powers that be that it was a sonic boom. And then they let it know that they had, they had authorized F-16s to go supersonic and intercepting a private jet that had done some weird pattern and is either getting close to restricted airspace or had passed into restricted airspace and then kind of came back. And so they had to go supersonic to get to it, shot some flares at it, never got a response from the pilot in terms of radio, I guess. And then it crashed, which I think they shot it down, but it crashed in the woods or mountains somewhere in Northern Virginia. So that's all I know at the moment. So that was the mystery plane near our nation's capital. Certainly possible that it was just some, like I mentioned earlier, some pilot returning with one of his planes and no passengers and just had a heart attack or died or whatever, or the comms were broken and the plane was just had mechanical failures or whatever. But definitely a little strange. And like I said, it doesn't seem. I've known of multiple instances of them responding to intercept fighters, and they normally don't feel the circumstances are exigent enough to go supersonic. So that kind of piqued my interest. Yeah, they said it was a Cessna. I've heard people refer to it as a jet, which when I think of Cessna, I think of a single prop, 4-person plane, but I know that's a company and I think they do make jets. So who knows how big this plane actually was. I mean, someone knows. I don't know if we're talking about like a rich person private jet or like a not as rich person private prop plane. Yeah, I literally said that earlier in the stream. I was like, I don't know if he stroked out because of a what. It's possible, definitely possible. We've heard weird reports of the airlines having problems because of different things. So who knows? But definitely a weird situation. I don't like to do too much speculation, but it always piques my interest with stuff like that, especially when I hear about it from firsthand, not secondhand, I guess, from individuals, and not from the official release or whatever. But as far as I know, all that's over, and it was just a private plane. But it did at least crash, and I think they shot it down, because if you're nervous enough or you have reason to believe it's serious enough to go supersonic to intercept it and shoot flares to get the pilot's attention, and you still don't get the pilot's attention, I think they move to the next step and don't just be like, oh, well, I guess we'll let him run out of gas or do what he was going to do. I think they take him out. So it'll be interesting to see if any more information comes out about that, or if it was just some guy rocking out to some fucking Sabaton, didn't hear that F-16 got his ass blown up. Yeah, we definitely. I mean, JJ said he may be able to do some more again soon, and he had me on his live stream not too long ago, which I appreciate. So we are. I'm always up for that. Looks like it was big enough to carry 7 to 12 passengers. Yeah, that's why I just heard people say they said jet. Everything I saw said jet, which I didn't know if they were using that terminology properly, but I quickly looked it up and I was like, yeah, they do. Cessna does make jets. So that does appear to be the case. So who knows? There's all sorts of obviously normal kind of banal explanations for how that could happen, but then there's all the weird stuff too. This is a prepping channel. So I was joking about it maybe having part of that missing 20,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate on it. Yeah, I'm probably gonna, sorry, George, I'm probably gonna have to shut this off pretty soon. But unless you guys really, I don't have anything particular. My stream of consciousness is petering out. So unless you guys have some more topics to drop in real quick that I can hit, I think the debris field will be very interesting to look at. Depends on who looks at it. We might not hear what was really there. If someone lives in the Northern Virginia woods, you could hike out there real quick, maybe. If you want to see some, if it's a UFO or something. The UFO stuff is so weird because I really do expect them to like come out with something weird. And you have so much of them like trickling in this, overall the information is meaningless. It's not proof, it's not anything like that. Where can I get a good fishing kit? That is a good question. I think I know a guy. In fact, you should probably look for the Ruled Wasteland Survival Fishing Kit on Amazon, now available in a new micro version. It only weighs about 2 ounces and fits in the palm of your hand. It can also be found on ruledwasteland.com. Those might be a good idea. Beef tallow for prepping. Yeah, I don't think you should go out of your way to like include tallow if it's not part of your already cooking plan and stuff. But you can get stuff like ghee and tallow last for a decent amount of time. And I already mentioned earlier that avocado oil is a good substitute for a lot of seed oils. And with the high smoke point, it's a little healthier. And butter, you can freeze butter. And actually, one of the things that I haven't bought yet, so I can't speak to its taste or anything like that, but there is I think it's Red Feather on Amazon. They have canned butter. I'm sure that's not the only one. Some of the prepping companies have powdered versions as well you can get, but there are options for butter that you can get for long-term storage: canned, powdered, and frozen. Frozen butter lasts, I think it lasts at least a few years, and I love butter for cooking. But yeah, tallow works too, and ghee or ghee or clarified butter, what they call it, is also has a good shelf life. And a lot of times back in the day, people would just leave, a can of grease, basically, pour it off the bacon or whatever, and leave that jar of sitting there and use it for stuff. So as long as you get it back up to the temperature that'll kill bacteria and stuff, I don't necessarily recommend that. You just leave this thing sitting out, but that is a lot of times how they did it back in the day. Because it's not something that you would want if you're cooking bacon or whatever. You would not want to waste that in a survival situation. You'd want to at least eat it. You could use it for like oil lamps and different sorts of things like that as well. So I think I will call tonight, guys. Thank you all for showing up. And remember, it's Killdozer Day, June 4th. And I appreciate you guys watching. And I'm planning on having some cool videos coming out in the future where I actually get to go out to the desert and shit, not just sitting in front of my beautiful fake. Everything is fake, guys. Just a reminder, everything in this world is fake. Except the hair.